Ladies and gentlemen, how are you? I hope this is working better today. Apparently, the microphone and Windows have decided to just not be friends anymore. And every time I plug it in, it's like a Russian roulette on if it'll actually work at the moment. I'm not sure what the hell's going on because I've had this microphone for, well, this is the second one we've had of the same thing, but we've had this type of microphone for like 2 years and never really had a problem until like 3 days ago when it it decided to play up again. So I don't know what's going on. I've tried uninstalling it. I've tried updating the drivers. I've tried reinstalling. I don't fully know. Anyway, doesn't matter. It seems to be working now. So we've got a really. This is going to be a long show. We have a lot to get through tonight. By the way, I'm getting a lot of emails from people. A lot of emails from people asking about when is the trial going to end. I don't know. I would say listen very carefully, and maybe that might help you. The other thing I would say is when you see this thumbnail go up and there is a live stream with a very far away time, that is not a time that will go live. That is just a holding time until I want to or can go live with a verdict. So when you see this on the channel, you'll know that I know that we're all waiting now. We're all waiting for the jury to do their job. So that'll be one of your first signs that something is afoot. Something is afoot when you see this. Okay. But that is not what's happening today. Today, we have a different thumbnail. We have the day 20 thumbnail. There we go. Day 20. So today was a really busy day. I complained a few days ago about how quiet the court days were. Well, they must have heard me because they were like, we know what we're going to do to Ping. We're just going to give all of it in one day. So that's sort of what they did. They've given us a ton of different evidence and exhibits and photos and interviews. It was a really, really jam-packed day. But one of the things we heard about from this afternoon, and I know everyone wants to talk about this, so we can start with this, is the homicide squad interview of Erin Patterson. So yes, we got to watch that this afternoon. It runs for about 21 minutes, and it's you see Erin. Looks like a typical cop interview. She's sitting in a interview room. Camera's very close to Erin and the police, and they ask her a series of questions. One of the questions they asked her, did she own a dehydrator? And she flat out said no. Without skipping a beat, she just said no. We all know that now to most likely not be true. But in this particular interview, this is very early on, by the way, very early on. Let me get the date. I'm pretty sure it's like the 8th of August, the 5th of August. So this interview is really early on, 5th of August, and that's only a couple. What would it be like? A couple days, like 24 hours after a couple of them had died. It might be Heather and Don. A couple of them died on the 4th, very early in the morning, I'm pretty sure. About 5 a.m., 1 a.m. in the morning, something like that. So this would have been very, very soon after those people passed away. And we watched this. So we watched it this afternoon. It's about 21 minutes. Unfortunately for us, the audio that we seem to have was really, we were having some tech issues this afternoon. So we had a bunch of things happen. I won't explain them, but we had a bunch of random tech things happen. First time ever, we've actually had a pretty good trial, but we had a real messy afternoon with a bunch of different things happening. and it sort of reset everything for us. And when it came back, it was really kind of, our audio was very rumbly, so it made it very difficult for us to hear this video because it was quite quiet. When Erin's speaking in this police interview, it's very much the opposite of what we've seen her speak in other videos. She's very quiet. She's very mouse-like is the word description I would give. She's just very you know, you know, yes, I don't know anything about that. That's sort of the tone of the interview. And I'll read you some of the quotes I have here from it. So they ask her, so this is Senior Constable Eppingstall. So he was the guy that we had on this on the in the witness box this afternoon, and he was the leader of this investigation. So it was his investigation. He was the highest ranking in it. He kind of coordinates all the sort of evidence and what they want to do, and search this and look at that. It's his call, that it's his team that is doing it, and he is from the homicide squad. So he is part of the they call it attached. So all police are police officers or detectives or forensic, but they can also then be attached to various squads. So, but he's homicide. All right. So they say to Erin, "We want to discuss the deaths of Gail Patterson and Heather Wilkinson with you today," and that's coming from Stephen Eppingstall. And then they say here, yeah. So in this video, she actually expresses sort of, I don't know if I'd call it excitement or surprise. I'd say surprise. They tell her that Dawn has undergone a liver transplant, and she seems shocked or surprised by this news. And they continue here, and that he was still alive at the time. At this point in time, it was only it looks like the two women, Gail and Heather, who had died so far. And they say here, the Senior Constable Eppingstall says, "We are trying to understand why they got so ill. We also want to understand why you're not very ill." And Erin replied, "You have to understand, I've never experienced this before." And then she goes on to explain that she's been very helpful with the Department of Health investigation. And, she tries to, uh, she's sort of offering that up to police as it as some sort of like, look, I'm here to help. I've helped before. I'm trying to do the best I can. And that's like sort of the statement she's making here. And she says, "I've been very helpful with the health department. I've given them all the information about the lunch." So we've heard that evidence already from the people from the Department of Health and the city council. We've heard from the child investigation people, DFFH. So we've heard from those three people that ran those investigations. And then apparently, yeah, so the senior constable also thanked her for being very helpful during the police search of her home. We'll get to that in a minute. And they asked her if she had ever dehydrated food before, and she said no and shook her head. So they just flat out asked her. They're like, "Hey, have you ever dehydrated something before?" And she says, like, she sort of has her head down, and she's sort of like, "No," and very quiet, very, very, very quiet. It's not a very loud interview. They're not sort of like very boisterous or yelling over each other, or it almost seems submissive in parts of it. Uh, she almost just seems like she wants to help. Like this is what she's here for. And they ask her here why she had her estranged husband, Simon Patterson's parents over for lunch. And her reply was, I want to maintain those relationships. They've always been good to me. Even after me and Simon separated, I've appreciated that. They've been like family to me. I love them. Nothing he's ever done to me will change that. There you go. That was probably the majority of it. A lot of the rest of it is, yeah, it's just, like Miranda rights, or what we don't call that here, but what you guys would know as Miranda rights, where they tell her you have a right to remain silent, you don't have to answer questions, you have a right to legal representation, all that type of thing. So those were the big bits out of that particular video. Yeah, she seemed surprised when she was told that Don was alive and had received a liver transplant. We know now that Don eventually succumbed to his illness, and that liver transplant actually ultimately did not work. It failed. So when we heard from the guy who did the autopsy yesterday, Dr. Beer, he told us, he said in the autopsy we looked him over, and one of the things that he actually died from, he died from amanita poisoning, or amatoxin poisoning, but part of the death of him was that this liver transplant rejected. And they said that can be for a variety of reasons. It can be that the patient was too unwell. His body couldn't take such a heavy sort of operation, and it may have rejected it based on that. It could have been that the poison had already damaged so much of the system that it was never going to work. When the way they explained it to us is this amatoxin, it poisons you, but one of the things it does, it deprives the cells of oxygen. And by doing that, the cells die. So you end up with dead organs and dead liver, dead bowel, other parts of you, kidneys possibly. And it could be that his body was so ravaged by the poison that even though they tried to attempt this liver transplant, it didn't take. So they said part of his death was rejection of that liver transplant within his body. It's real. It's very confronting evidence is the word I would use. Confronting, especially when you hear about these people and their last few their last few days on Earth. It's a lot. Yeah, and then you hear about their autopsy and how they weighed them and measured their hearts, which he's like, that's what we do with everyone. And he goes, everyone gets a MRI. So anyway, we talked about that last night. I don't think I need to go back over it. I just wanted to give you some context. So yeah, so at this point in time, Don is still alive and has received that liver transplant. So yeah, they told her, and she just was sort of like, oh my God, really? And yes, so that almost finished off our afternoon. We got that video quite late. I don't have a time on my notes. Hold on. Let me double check if I do have a time. Sometimes I write a time when things finish. We watched it at... That's not it. I'm not sure. It was late this afternoon, though. I don't quite know how late. It must be up here. Hold on, guys. I just want to give you as much information as I can. Yeah, I don't have a timestamp for it, but after lunch, it was sort of after lunch, heading towards the end of the day, is when we got to witness that. It might have been like late, late 2 o'clock, early 3 o'clock when we got to watch that. Um, just having a look if I've got any other notes for you for the video. Sorry, I don't like the dead air. I'm just trying to do this quickly. It doesn't seem so. Seems like I don't have much else. Yeah, it doesn't. I don't have anything on there. All right. And yeah, so that's the 5th of August 2023. And then they say, so that interview, that police interview is 5th of August. And then they ask the senior constable, they ask him on the 6th of August 2023 at 12:38 a.m., were you notified that then Don Patterson had passed away? And he says, yes. And they said, following on from this point, you conducted a number of inquiries in relation to this investigation. He says, yes. They say, we're going to ask you about some of these specific inquiries. And they say, certainly over the course of September, October, and into early November 2023, and beyond that date. And they said, did your investigative inquiries include obtaining CCTV from relevant locations or locations of interest? And he says, yes. And they say obtaining and reviewing the accused mobile phone records. And then he goes, yes. And they say obtaining, reviewing the accused medical records. And then they say, and various statements from witnesses. And then reviewing medical records for the 4 lunch guests. Then searching and reviewing the data extracted from any devices or computers seized from the property. We've heard evidence related to that already. And then they said, and from the accused home address and other property that she owned. And they said the result of those inquiries was the accused was arrested by police on the 2nd of November 2023 and formally charged. And he says, yes. So 2nd of November 2023 is when Erin Patterson was eventually charged with the 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. That's when that happened. And so they played to the jury another video. It's CCTV, and it was shown to us in 3 different parts, right? So it was a CCTV of a subway, and it showed it was an interesting video. It was just Erin Patterson in her car, that red car, pull into the subway, drop her child off, take off again, and then come back 11 minutes later and pick up her child again. And that was the video. So we got to watch that this afternoon. I'll find my notes for it. That was the last video we got to watch today. Yes. So they said, did you obtain CCTV from a neighboring restaurant to the subway Leongatha? And he says yes. And they say, so he goes, we got the subway CCTV footage. And he goes on to say, the owner operated a different restaurant nearby, so we had to go to that restaurant to get the subway footage, if that makes sense. So apparently the person who owned the subway owned a different restaurant. They weren't at the subway or something, so they had to go to the other restaurant, and then from that restaurant they were able to get the CCTV for the subway. Why that had to happen, I don't know, but that was the evidence. I guess because he owns two, he can't be in two places at the same time. And okay, they say the CCTV shows the outside area of the subway car park, and he goes yes. And they say they want to play the footage for everyone, and so that's what we watched. It is CCTV of Leongatha Subway restaurant, and they say the timestamp in the bottom right hand corner of the video. It says the 29th of July, 2023 at 6:22 p.m. 29th of July. So they said, "Did you make inquiries about whether that timestamp was accurate?" And he says, "Yeah, we determined that it's actually an hour slow. So the time actually is 19:22 or 7:22 p.m." And they play the clip to us, and there is a car pulling into the car park. It's a red car, and then it just goes out of the screen, and the detective says, or senior constable says, "We believe that is Erin Patterson's car." And then they say, "Then we see a young person walking," and they say, "Who is that?" And that is Erin Patterson's son. That's all I'm saying. It's just her son. And then they say that red vehicle then is driven out and turns left after leaving the car park. And he says that is correct. And they say that young person, uh, he went into the subway, and then the red car went out of where it had come, which is like it's like a drive-in, sort of an entryway into the subway car park area. It's just you come off a road and then there's a wide entrance, and that's what they're talking about. So it came in, dropped off their son, and then left again. The 29th, hold on. 29th should be the day of it. I got so many dates in my head now, I'm not even sure. Let's go to July 29th. That's the Saturday. That's the Saturday. So July 29th, 2023 was Saturday. So it would have been later on from the lunch. So there was a Saturday that the lunch happened during the daytime at lunchtime. They're saying this is in the evening, around 7 o'clock in the evening. So okay, let me go back to these notes. And they say, "What street is that?" And they say, "That is the main road through Leongatha from Currumbara." And they said they couldn't quite remember what it was, but they end up figuring out that it's Anderson Street. And then they're saying that they played a second clip, and they say that clip shows the real time of 7:28 p.m., so 6 minutes later. And then there's a young person that comes out of the door of the restaurant, and that is Erin Patterson's son. And then they play a third clip, and they say the timestamp on that one, the real time, is 7:33, so an hour later than the timestamp. And they say this is approximately 11 minutes after the start of the first clip. So the first clip where her son comes in, gets dropped off. He goes in, buys food or whatever, and then you see him exit the subway, and he's sort of milling about out the front, waiting for mum to come back and pick him up. And the time difference between dropping him off and then picking him up throughout these three videos is about 11 minutes. So there you go. That was one of the other videos we saw today. And so they showed us a couple of maps of the local area. After they showed the CCTV, they showed a couple of maps of the local area, and they were sort of asking him to point to a couple of things like where does Erin live, where's the subway, and they were just I think they were just trying to point out like what direction they're in and how close they are, and it's possible that when she left, maybe she went home and came back. I don't know for sure. It wasn't in the evidence, but that's what we saw. We saw these maps of the local area. He pinpointed where Erin lived, showed us where um, the subway was. So now we all know where the subway is in Leongatha. So if we ever wind up out there, we'll never go hungry. We'll be able to go get two subs for $11 or whatever. Sean says riveting viewing. It was that kind of day, I'm telling you. It was a lot of evidence and that kind of day. Yeah, it has to be the day. It has to be the day of. So the 29th is the day when they had the lunch, which was Saturday. This says it's the 29th, but in the evening again. I think we covered it. It means it's what is about 7 p.m. It's about 7 hours after um the lunch, roughly. I think if you go back to the evidence that Ian gave, he says they left around 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., about 4 hours after the lunch ended, and people left the property. So there you go. And those kids were dropped home at the end of that lunch by their father, Simon. So Simon dropped the children off at the end, and you probably would have heard that they spoke to grandma and grandpa, and then they spoke to great auntie and great uncle for very brief minute before they left, and that's it. So yeah, thanks, Sean. Yeah, it is. I've listened to enough evidence to remember the July 29th. I just wanted to make sure. Yep, thank you. Yeah, I think we'll talk about what you just emailed me, especially the starting bit, maybe either today, later tonight, or a bit tomorrow. I think we'll hear more of what you've got there, maybe tomorrow, is what I'm gonna say. So, okay. Yeah, so they're just saying here, can you explain to us? They're saying here, just as we look at the map, can you see the location of where the accused home address is? He says, I can. They say, can you just explain to us where that is? And he says, yep. So in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, you have a street called Worthy Street. You travel up Worthy Street, turn right into Redacted, and it's the second house somewhere in that street. And they say, so just short of where the road juts out to the left, redacted is Miss Patterson's house, and it is on the right side of the road. Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. Well, that helps in case I get lost again. Yeah, there's a lot of dates to keep up with. We have a lot of things. I think we all know when the lunch was, but there's a lot of other different dates. There's dates when data was used, there's places were gone to, specific things were talked about. There's probably about 50 different dates spread across the trial, really. Probably, I know Sean sent me one that has about 20 on it, but I would say there's probably at least 50 that was spoken about in the trial. Like some of them date back to the year before, later on in January and March, and 2 weeks after August, and there's quite a number of them, but it's not a bad list that Sean gave me. All right. So that's that. That was a video we saw of this subway. So you've heard the two of those. So they ask him to bring up this map again. I'll just finish off his evidence for you. And they say, just for reference sake, can you show us where the Woolworths Leongatha is as we look at the subway? And he says, as we look at the subway on the map, it's below. Going down there, there's a street called Smith Street and Pearl Street. And he says, yes, ma'am. And then he says, almost directly south of the subway. So they're just marking on the map different landmarks that have been talked about before. So the Woolworths in Leongatha has been brought up a couple of times. Uh, Erin Patterson's home has been brought up a few times, and he's just marking these on a map, and then they got entered into evidence today. So there you go, riveting stuff for you. I hope you love details because that's what I have for you. And they said, yeah. Okay, so they put it to him and they say, this is from Miss Warren, the prosecution. And she says, from that footage that we saw, that subway footage, as we went through it, it was apparent there was an 11-minute window where Miss Patterson dropped her son off and then returned to collect him. They said, did you make inquiries about where Miss Patterson might have gone during that 11-minute period? And the senior constable replies, yeah, we tried to track her vehicle, but we were unable to find any footage of where she'd gone. And that was the ending of his evidence after. Okay, thanks for that. That was the end of his evidence for today, but not the end of what we're going to talk about. We still have the search warrant. The search warrant. We're going to talk about the search warrant in a minute. So we did actually get to view a little bit of footage today from the search warrant, and it was a very small, short video, and it was Erin Patterson and a different police officer who we'll talk about in a little bit. And they're sitting at a table in Erin's home, and he's basically explaining what's going to happen. He's like, we're going to seize items, and he's giving her the rundown of how all this works, and she's just sort of sitting there like this, and he's sort of just dictating to her what they're going to do. And this is where some of her things, like her mobile phone, was seized from her. We'll talk a little bit more about the seizure of the mobile phone when we get up to that evidence in a minute. But there's something you'll need to hear about. So, all right, let's go up into the search warrant. Let me get up to my notes. My notes were 73 pages today. It was a long day, guys. Long day. Long day. All right. I need like when you have a real journal and you can put like little stickies in different like sections. I need like a program that'll do that for my notes, so I can just click on it and then go to the next tab. That'd be great. That's not what we want. Nope, that's the wrong evidence. Nope. All right. So we heard from a detective sergeant of police, and his name is Luke Farrell, and he is with the homicide squad. And they said, in August 2023, did you perform investigative duties in relation to this matter? This matter meaning Erin Patterson and the trial and investigation of it. And he says, I did. They said, as part of those duties, on the 5th of August 2023, did you, in company with several other members of the homicide squad, attend the accused home address at Redacted in Leongatha? And he says, I did. And they say, was that for the purpose of executing a search warrant which police had obtained? And he says that is right. And they put it to Mr. Farrell, and Officer Farrell, and they say the other members that were present that day were Detective Senior Constable Stephen Eppingstall, Detective Senior Constable David Martin Alcade, And they say Detective Senior Constable Simon Florence and Senior Constable Meg Crawford. Is that right? And he says that is correct. And then they put it to him and say, now in terms of the search warrant, there are a number of things listed on there that were of interest to the police. And then he says that is right. And then they say, does that include food waste, including mushrooms? And he says, yes. Food packaging? He says, yes. Mobile phones and digital devices capable of storing communication information. And he says, that is right. And they say, what was your role? And he says, when police embark on a search warrant, each member is assigned a specific role. And he says that is right. That's what they do. They say, what was your role that day? And he says, I was team leader. My role during this search itself was to physically conduct the search. So he explains this that there's other officers and their job is might be to videotape something or put items into evidence or be with the person in the home that is having their home search, keep an eye on them. But his job was to physically pick up items and look for them. So he'd be like looking at them and flipping them around and, oh, is this a mushroom? Oh, it's green, but it's not really a mushroom. And that's sort of what his job was, to search the entire house, look for anything on their list of items that they could seize and get them into evidence. So, hey, Trisha. Thank you. Hey, I saw you on Twitter the other day. Aussie Trisha says, at the start, fell and hurt my hand. You hurt your hand? I'm sorry to hear that. Hence my silence. Thanks for the membership ping. Appreciate it. You're welcome. Got here as you ended. Loving the content. Thanks for all the hard work. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you for the super chat. Really helps out. Thank you very, very much. It's very kind of you. Thank you to the over 200 new subscribers we've had in the last couple of weeks too. I don't often check my statistics right now because I just like in court, come home, do the notes, go to sleep. But I was doing something in YouTube today in preparation for the verdict and stuff like that. And I came across it and it was like over 200 members in the last 10 days. So that was pretty cool. Welcome to everyone. Nice to meet everyone. If you are new here, hop in the chat and say hello. I'd like to get acquainted with the new people. That'd be cool because I know all these jokers. I know all these. I know this guy right here. I know him. Look, he has a mushroom in his photo. I know him. Yeah, I hope it heals quick for you. That's terrible. You hurt your hand. Everyone's been having falls and things. Forson's mum had some issues as well. I hope she is going to be okay as well. Hope you're okay. That's all right. Listen to the show. We got heaps more to talk about. All right. So they ask him, "What time did you get there for the search warrant?" And he says about 11:40 in the morning. And they say during the search, did Senior Constable Martin Alcade were they in charge of photographing each item? And he says yes. So we talked about roles. When they do these sort of search warrants, each person has a different role. Well, Senior Constable Martin Alcade was in charge of photographing. So there you go. And apparently also did a video of the search. And the other senior constable, Crawford, was recording the items in an exhibit log. And they say here, I just want to take you through items that were located during the search. And they say here, in this first, so they showed us a bunch of photographs. And they say, in this first photograph, can you tell us about what does this show? And he replies, it shows a set of drawers in the kitchen at the address at redacted Lee and Gather. So that's basically what that photo was. I think I even tweeted about it. It was literally a photo of a kitchen cabinet. like with drawers in it. That's what it was. It was a photo of like, everyone's got one in the kitchen where they got like multiple drawers in it. Like that's all. That's what it was. It wasn't anything like crazy. It wasn't like, oh my god, there's a tiger. No, it's just a drawers in a kitchen. No tiger. And they said here, and this is relevant to you as you located an instruction manual for a Sunbeam Food Lab electronic dehydrator. Is that right? And he says, that is right. It was in the bottom left drawer in that set of 4. So, like I said, it was just like multiple drawers. So, in the bottom one, in the set of 4, they found a dehydrator manual. There you go. Hey Carrie, good to see you. I can't put that comment up on the screen, but I will say, I I don't think you're far off. Sean says, lucky it's not summer heat for you. It's freezing down here. I'm telling you. It was it was like I was at the station coming home from court, and it was like ice was falling from the sky and pelting us while I was waiting for the train to get home. There was just like ice balls coming from the sky. It was crazy. So Melbourne is full on winter right now. Full on winter. All right. And they say here, so if we go to the second photograph that you zoomed in on that drawer, and they say in the third photograph of that drawer, the drawer is open, and they say, is that the inside of the drawer as it appears when first opened by police? And he says, yes. And they say if we zoom in on that on the fourth photograph, we have zoomed in on what appears to be an instruction manual. And he says that is correct. And they say if we go back to the third photo, so they went back to like a wider view, and they say they ask him like where in this photo with the drawer open, where is the instruction manual before you found it? And he says there's effectively 2 piles of documents in this drawer. It's at the rear of the 2 piles. On top of that, the rear pile. So if you imagine a drawer that is sort of has like, stuff like this, like, well, thicker than this, but you know what I mean. But it has 2 of them. So one at the front of the drawer, one at the back. He's saying at the rear stack of manuals, paper, whatever it is, that is where they found the manual for the food dehydrator. So they found it in the drawer in Erin Patterson's kitchen while doing a search warrant. Carrie says Ping and Ninchi. I don't know who Ninchi is, but yeah, good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you, Carrie. I hope I'm saying your name right. Sometimes I say even common names incorrectly. Sean. I called him Shane for about 9 months. All right, let's continue. So yeah, then they say in a fifth photograph, they just say it's a close up of the instruction manual. And he says, yeah, that's right. It has now been removed from the drawer. And they said a sixth photo is the rear of the instruction manual. So it's just, you guys would have all seen evidence photos before. So you would have seen it. They like to take photographs of multiple sides, and it's just for evidentiary value in case they miss something or there's a detail they want to come back to, something like that. Oh, really? Ninch recommended your channel. Well, thank you. I don't even know who that is, but thank you to that person. I appreciate it. I'll look it up after we get out of here, and I'll reach out to them and say thank you. Thank you. It's very kind. Very kind. Hey, Tamara. Tamara, hey, Tamara, how are you? First time commenting, although I watched a few episodes. Erin House is 2 streets away from where I live. Okay. There's been a few people in the chat who actually live in the area. I've been contacted by several people who live either in Leongatha or they live in Korumburra. And multiple people in the community have reached out to me over the length of the trial, telling me various things. One, how to say the town names correctly. That was a big issue week one. Okay, for 2 weeks, it was an issue. But now I've got it. Um, yeah, so there's quite a number of people who don't live too far away. Tamara said, yeah, 2 streets away. It must be bonkers out there right now. I know for a fact there is a documentary crew out there right now. Um, I have spoken to them a couple of times, and I heard they're out filming in the local area. So you might catch them when they're out there, and if you do, say hello. But I hear they're out there, sort of talking to people, filming out there, filming like the surroundings and things like that. Sort of like B-roll type footage. They're trying to get places that have been mentioned in the trial and stuff like that. So maybe you'll see them out there. Maybe you will. But it's interesting that you don't live that far away. By the way, I just asked that you don't share the street name, but you're quite welcome to share any other details. Just we're not supposed to give out. I don't know why, but it's pretty well known. But we're not supposed to say the number in the street. I'm not sure why, because it was put out several other times. Good work, Mike Bell. I can't put that up here, but I understand why you say such things. Yeah, nice to see other locals. Yeah, Renee's a local too. Tamara says, I did see reporters around the time it first happened. No, I wouldn't share anything personal. Don't worry. Yeah, I think it's more a reporting requirement for people like me. There's certain things we can talk about and say, and there's some things during the trial they ask us to sort of just stay off until later, because you don't want to affect a trial and get a mistrial, or like I don't want them to be like, yes, we're almost at the end, but we're gonna have to just get rid of the trial and start again because that guy on YouTube said the wrong thing. I, I don't want that to happen to me. That's not what I want. Okay. And just continuing with this search warrant, they're saying if we're looking at the set of shelves on the left-hand side there, the third shelf down, there is what appears to be a set of kitchen scales. And they say, yes, it is a digital scales with a glass bowl. So that's what they're finding on the third shelf down on a set of shelves that they were looking at. We see a photograph today in trial of it. And then they say in the eighth photograph, could you just say where this is in the home? So they show us this photograph, and he explains that that's in the same kitchen where the first set of photographs were taken. So the photographs of the drawers. He says the set of drawers are pictured in the first photographs are off to the left of that cooktop. Yeah, so you sort of see a stove slash cooktop area in this particular photo. Hold on. Sorry, guys. I need a drink. It's like icy out there right now. My voice is starting to crack, just from the cold. All right, and they say, what is on the bench, and what do you see? So they're taking these photos, showing this evidence, and he says there is a cookbook, and he describes it as a recipe tin eats dinner cookbook. So before this trial, and I have to admit, I had no idea what recipe tin eats were. I was like, what does that mean? Is that like, what is that? But the book that we saw was very much like this, and I'll bring it up on the screen for you. You may have seen it before. I don't know, but this was very similar to the book that we saw a photo of today. So this is what they found, or a similar edition. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same, but it's a dinner cookbook for recipe tin eats. So the only way I know who this is because recently she was having a fight with another lady who does baking or something, and they were like having a fight with cupcakes or something. I'm not sure what they were doing, but I know they had some sort of disagreement on plagiarism. So, but this is the book they're sort of talking about in this photo. And they ask, "Did you look at that cookbook?" And he says, "I did. It was in the position like that when I found it. It had like a tissue, a piece of tissue that had been used as a bookmark, but otherwise it was closed in that condition." And he goes to say that the bookmark um, wasn't bookmarking a beef Wellington. So don't get all excited. It wasn't a beef Wellington. They didn't open it up and be like, "Oh my god, the tissue led us to the beef Wellington." No, he says it was on a completely different recipe. But later in the book, they did find a recipe for a beef Wellington. So, and they detail that here in the questioning here. They said, "Did you locate a recipe of relevance?" And he says, "Yes, it wasn't the bookmark page, but it was on a separate page. There was a beef Wellington recipe." And they said, they ask him to continue on his description of that. And he says, "Yep, that page was like splattered with cooking liquids." And they say they'll come back to that. They said, "Did you also, whilst conducting a search in the fridge, locate a platter containing cuts of fruit or like so a fruit platter?" So you would have heard in some previous evidence when they had the lunch, uh, Heather brought a fruit platter, and then I think it was Gail brought a cake. So they were invited over for lunch. They were like, "Hey, let's bring something," because that's what you do when you go to a party or you get invited to someone's home. You always bring like a bottle of wine or a cake or some chocolates or something. So that's what that was from. And they say here, "Did you also locate a white Maxwell Williams jug containing brown liquid from the refrigerator in the butler's pantry?" And he says that is correct. And they said now that so they move on here after searching the kitchen and some other areas and taking these food related items. They start targeting in the house electronic items. So they start searching for these different computers, iPads, mobile phones, that type of thing. That's what they're looking for in the search warrant. And they say here, "You also said that the search included looking for computers or devices that were capable of storing or communicating information. Is that right?" He says, "Yes." They said, "Did you locate a black Cooler Master computer and power cord from the second bedroom on the upper floor?" And he says, "Yes." And they said, "Were you told by anyone whose bedroom that might be?" And he replies, "It was the male child's bedroom." And they say, "So it was Redacted's bedroom?" And he says, "Redacted, yes." Sorry, I can't give out the names or anything like that. They're underage. So it's redacted for us. And then they talk about here, if we go to photograph 10, I was just asking about. So you said that was Redacted's bedroom that this was located, and he says, "I think that's right." And they ask him, "Do you recall where that information came from?" And he says, "No. Whether it was sort of deduced from other stuff in the room, I think that's the most likely explanation." So they found things in there that might belong to a young boy or something like that, and they just went, "Oh, it's probably a young boy's room," that type of thing. And they say, "Do you very idea?" And they say, "Now, if we go to photograph 10, does that show the black Cooler Master computer on the top shelf there?" And he says, "Yes, I think that's right." And they say the top shelf is the top shelf of the wardrobe in that particular bedroom. And he says, "Yes." And they say, if we go to photograph 11, that item has now been removed from that shelf. And he says, "Yes." They say photograph 12 is a close up photograph of the sticker label on that computer. And he says, "I think that's right." And then they say photograph 13 is a photo of that device, and we see the Cooler Master label on top of that. And he says that's correct. And then photograph 14 is a rear photo of that particular device. And then photo 15 is a side view of that device. So typical evidence type things. They photograph a million times around one item. That's pretty well known. Yeah, let me go. Let me put you back on our colorful thing. There you go. Instead of the book. There you go. All right. And they just ask here, I'll take you to photograph 16. Did you also during the search locate a black Samsung mobile phone? He says yes. And they say, was that from the same bedroom that was on that was the second bedroom on the upper floor? And he says, yeah. And they say in the wardrobe there, um, if they go to photograph 17 on that top shelf there, the black phone sitting in front of those cases, is that right? So it was like you could just see the tiny mobile phone in this shelf. And they say yes. And they say if we go back to the previous photo, photograph 16, they just say, is that just on the top shelf that we can see in that photograph? And he says that is. And he says, this was his reply in court today. So the photographer is a bit too short to capture it, but it's there on the top shelf. So what he was trying to say is their photographer is quite a short person. I was like, that's a bit mean. But I guess he had to come up with a logical explanation why they couldn't photograph on top of the shelf. So he's like, we have a bit of a shorty in our crew, and they weren't able to get that high up. So that's that's how that happened. Okay, and then they say if we go to photograph 18, is that a photo of the device that has now been removed from the wardrobe? And he says that's correct. And they say that's a close-up view of that device. They say yes. And they say photograph 19 is a photo of the rear. Photograph 20 they say this is a Samsung tablet in a black gray case. Is that right? And he says that is correct. They said, where was this device located? So they said this particular device was located in the same bedroom and it was in possession of redacted. So redacted is a child, but it's not the boy. So it'll be redacted girl. That's it. That's all I can give you on that one. So they found a tablet. It was in possession of a girl, and that's where they found it, but it was in the same bedroom where they found the other items, which is the boy's bedroom. So I have to be very careful how you explain this. There's some stuff here that you will absolutely get thrown in jail if you say it incorrectly. So we have to be sort of careful. And they say photograph 20 shows that the device was with a case that is open. And they say, yeah. And they say 21 shows the case closed, and that is just closed over the screen. So it was just showing a tablet with the cover on it and not off it. That's it. And they say photograph 22 shows the other side of the case closed. And then he goes, yep. 23 shows the case open. He says, yep. And they say 24 shows the device screen has been activated. So that photo just showed us the type of tablet it was. And then with the button pushed, so it lit up, and we could see like the front screen and like sort of apps and things like that. That's what that photo was. And they say here, so these items were located and seized on the 5th of August 2023. Is that right? And he says yes. And they say, okay, I'll come back. I asked you about a Recipe Tin Eats cookbook, and you said when you looked at it, there was a recipe inside it for a beef Wellington. And he says, yes. I think, yeah, so that's it. Just that they found a recipe for a beef Wellington in that cookbook. There you go. Um, what else do they say? So extracted from the video. So they showed us a bunch of still images, and these still images had been taken from a live video. So a video they did when they were searching the house. They didn't show us that video, but they showed us still images that they wanted to present to the jury. And those images are described as this. Miss Warren, so this is the prosecution, saying, now these images are labeled individually. So the first image, can you please explain what does that show? And he says, that shows a dining table in the center of the house, and the kitchen is off to the left. And to the right of the image is a living room, lounge room type area. And then they ask him to explain what image two is. And he says, so the shelves we saw in the photograph earlier from the utility room or the butler's pantry behind the kitchen, that's just a closer view of that third shelf down with the electronic kitchen scale located there. And then they say, image three, can you explain that? And he says, so these are still images extracted from the video that Martin Alcade took in the kitchen of the address, and in particular, image three shows a closed dishwasher with soiled plates on the bench above, and image four shows the open dishwasher with the bottom rack with some other plates inside the dishwasher. And they say the purpose of these images was to show that plates were seen in the video during the search warrant. Is that right? And he says, yes, that is correct. So it was just to show that they were able to find different types of crockery during the search of the home. And this was actually a video, but they pulled images out of it to show the jury, I guess, to focus on that. And they said the video of this search is actually quite long and it's quite tedious. So they just sort of pulled the bits out that they wanted to focus on. Like they didn't tender to the jury the entire video, just these little bits of it. And then they just say image number 6 is a closer up view of those same plates. And they say image 7 just shows the recipe book, the recipe tin eats cookbook, again on the bench on the top counter. And he says that is correct. And they said at the end of the search, you arrived at 11:40 a.m. on the 5th of August. At what time did you conclude the search? And he said it was considerably later, sometime after around 3:45 or somewhere around that time. And they said, towards the end of the search, did you make a request of the accused that she hand over her mobile phone? He says, yes. He says, I suppose the last thing that I did before we left was at about 3:29 p.m. I sat down with Miss Patterson and set about explaining to her the conclusion of the search and those type of things. And at the time, I took possession of her mobile phone from her. They said, how did you take possession of the phone? And he says, she gave it to me. I asked for it and she gave it to me. And they ask, now, when you took possession of the phone, did you ask her any questions about access, about how you might access that phone? And he says, I asked her if there was a PIN code required to open the phone, and she provided a 4-digit code and a 6-digit code that she thought it might be. But on attempting to open the phone, I didn't require to enter any passcode at all. This is when they show us this short video between this particular police officer and Erin Patterson. And it actually um, just shows that interaction of him asking for the phone, asking for the PIN code, and explaining her rights and what happened here today at the search, that type of thing. It's just, very typical of a search warrant. So that's that little video we got to see at that point. Julie said, ping if you're allowed on a scale 1 to 10. Oh, in-home organization? I don't think we saw a lot. I think the photos that we saw were very focused. So and the videos we saw like if you talk about the plate photos that they had before, they were very close up. So it was sort of like they took the photo like this, like pretty close, and what you see is like the plates and a little bit of the bench. We didn't really get like wide sweeping views of Erin Patterson's home. I don't know if we will or they may not, but we didn't really see that. And anything they did, it was more like an evidence photo. So it was more pretty like, you know, like this, like really close. And they're like, look, a label, look, you can read the label, that type of thing. It was not, yeah, just not really like wide shots or, panning around the home. We didn't see really anything like that. They were all pretty, yeah, pretty close up. So I hope that helps you. I hope that helps you. Aussie Trisha said, caught up on 2.4 speed. Now it sounds like I'm minus 50. What do I sound like when you speed up my voice? Do I sound normal? Some people accuse me of talking too slow. Maybe I sound like a normal person when you speed me up. Maybe I no, that's a bad idea. I was gonna lead with a different suggestion, but let's not do that. Normal? I sound normal after that? Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, I appreciate it. It could be. So, we did hear about some, factory reset, information today. Is that what you guys would like to talk about next? Because we're sort of done with the search warrant bit. You guys wanna hear about the, factory reset? So they actually told us that the senior constable that we spoke in the afternoon, he told us that this phone that they took from Erin, he took possession of it himself. Him, the highest guy, the team leader, the guy who is running the homicide investigation. He said he took this phone, put it in a lockup in his office. No one had access to it but him. No one knew the code, nothing like that. And he says there was a remote wipe master factory reset done on the phone remotely during the time that it was in lockup. So he gave evidence today saying that this did occur and that he was 100% sure no one else had access to the phone. And he said he was the only one who knew how to access that particular locker where they had kept the phone. No other team members could do it, nothing like that. They had to go through him. And yeah, that was, yeah, let me find that bit for you. 1 second. So just while we're going to move to the next bit, they so on the 5th of August, later that afternoon, they actually did search a second address, which was in Mount Waverly. This is a second property that Erin owns, and they were looking for very similar things. And they said, I'll just give you a bit of a rundown. They said, was anyone present at this address when this search warrant was executed? And he says, no, it was vacant at the time. And they said the search was concluded at that particular address. They arrived there around 5:23 p.m. after searching Erin's other place in Leongatha. And they said a search was conducted and ultimately nothing of interest to the investigation was located at the Mount Waverly address. So they said they concluded that search at about 5:40 p.m. in that evening. So there was a second address searched on the same day, which there you go. They didn't find anything at the Mount Waverly address. And they say here, similarly, in relation to the Mount Waverly address, did you locate anything, food items, packaging, anything of interest? And he says, nothing of interest at that address, no. So yeah, they didn't find anything there. All right, let me try and work down my notes and try find. Yeah, let's try and find the reset information if I can. Okay, let me see. Sorry, guys, we have a lot of notes today, and I until that person brought it up in the chat, I probably wasn't going to talk about it because I think it has been talked about before. But I will go over it. Yeah, let's go further down. So this is when we hear from Stephen James Eppingstall. So this is when we heard from him at the start of the show, and he is the homicide squad detective, and his title is detective leading senior constable of police. And they say, "Are you the informant in this matter?" And he says, "Yes, ma'am." And they say the informant is a lead investigator assigned to a particular investigation. Is that right? And he says that is correct. Responsible for directing the investigation. And he says, yes, ma'am. And he says, responsible for compiling all evidence and producing a brief of evidence in relation to the matter. And he says, yes. So that's what his role was. I want to find his evidence about the reset though. Hold on. Yeah. No. All right. So in his evidence, I just want to double check. Okay. Hmm. Hold on, guys. I did find it. Okay. All right. That's fine. All right. Let me go down here. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to scan through. It was talked about quite a few times. I'm just trying to find the correct. Ah, geez. Why does it keep resetting? Yeah. I don't know. I can't find it in my notes for some reason. Let me try and look through Eppingstall's inquiries here. Guys, give me 2 minutes. Talk to yourselves just for 1 minute. I just want to check another set of notes because I carry two, and I just want to check the second set. Give me 1 sec. All right, I do have it. I'm just tee it up for you. I do have it. Sorry. Yeah. So they ask here about the phone, and um, they say on the 5th of August, later that night at around 11 p.m. Hmm. Guys, I'm gonna query this with someone else tomorrow. I want to query a legal question before I talk about it a bit more. I've got something here that I don't quite get, and I want to make sure I talk about the right thing. So I'll bring that back up with me tomorrow, and I'll get clarification on it, and we can go over it again. There's something in there that keeps tripping me up, and I want to make sure there's a lot of things that you have to be very careful of when you report court reporting cases, and there's something there that I don't know if it's a mistake in my notes or something like that. So I want to clarify with the Supreme Court tomorrow, and then we can talk about more about it tomorrow. It's not a big deal. I think it's been brought up in other evidence, so I think people have heard about it, about this remote wipe. I think people have heard this evidence already. So sorry about that. Sorry about that big blank air for like 5-10 minutes. It's just yeah, it's just a funny. There's a funny quote in my notes, and I can't differentiate something, and I want to make sure I do the right thing. So yeah. Oh, hey, thank you. Who is this? Someone sent in a Ko-fi. Oh, it's my friend Kathy. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. It's very kind of you. Okay, let's go back to some actual evidence. Let's go back to some actual evidence. Let's go down here. Yeah, so we spoke about that. We spoke about the subway evidence. What else do we have? We spoke about the search warrant. We spoke about the police interview. So we did that. What else have we got on my list? Yeah. Actually, I can talk about it here. So in some other notes, they say here, Erin Patterson, here. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the quote I have that I can give you that I feel okay talking about. The court heard a phone seized from Patterson's property was remotely factory reset while in a secure locker at the homicide squad headquarters at about 3:16 p.m. on August 6th. Constable Eppingstall said after the interview, investigators were informed that Donald Patterson died and Erin was charged with murder. Okay, so 316. 3. No. Yeah, so they ask about this remote factory reset, and I'll see if I can find my notes on it very quickly. Okay, so down here, they said we heard evidence that there was a remote factory reset that was conducted, and he says yes. And they said, "Where was that phone?" And he says, "That was still in a secure." He said it was secured in my locker. No person had been back to the office in that time. So, and they said, "I get where was that phone located?" He says, "Still in that locker." And they said, "Yeah." So he says, while it was in that locker, it had been remote factory reset. So there you go. That's as much as I can give you today. I don't know. I've seen, and I don't want to guess on this trial, so I'll give you a general from a different trial. So in a drug trial that I saw in Australia, police, and I'm not saying this is happening in Erin's case. I'm just giving you an example from a different case. I've seen various ways they will do this. Sometimes I'll leave it on and they'll actually record things that are coming in. Normally for like drug investigations, they're looking like who's calling for drugs or, is their dealer like, hey, buddy, where are you? Like, I can't get in touch with you. You owe me 20 grand. Like that type of thing. They'll leave the phone on and let it run. In other drug investigations or other murder investigations, whatever, they'll turn it, like Sean said, into airplane mode. Then they'll run it through Celebrite. And Celebrite is basically a complete backup of your mobile device. It uses almost like a back door to get underneath the security. Doesn't work for everything, but a lot of phones it will work for. And it copies the raw data from your storage device. So I've seen this done a few different ways. I can't say why that happened in like why this happened in the Aaron Patterson case. We haven't heard that evidence. I'll just say that sometimes they leave it on, sometimes they put it in airplane mode, sometimes they record it. I've seen them record it before where they have a video camera that's pointed at the phone and they just record the messages coming through and stuff like that. But that's normally for like drug investigation, that type of thing. I don't think it would happen here. But I don't know. All we got told was that it was in a secure locker and somehow it was remote factory wiped. Someone did that. Who was that? I'm not sure. I can't tell you. Could be anyone. Any could be anyone. Yeah. We have to remain impartial here for now. Dyslexia, hey, how are you? The sun's up over here, is it? The sun's down here. It's very dark. All right. Let me see what else I have on my list for today. Hey, let me check my own Twitter so I'm not missing anything. Recipe tin. Leading senior constables, Stephen Eppingstall. Yep. Sally Ann. Yep. For a photo of the cooler master. Yeah, I think that's a decent roundup of it. I think I've given you most of it. Most of what you'd feel okay sitting through anyway. A lot of court questioning and things like that. It's like, where do you live? And the guy might be like, Melbourne. And they'll be like, how long have you lived in Melbourne? And he'll be like, 28 years. And they'll be like, okay. Where do you work? And they'll be like, oh, I work for the police. And he's like, okay. Where in the police do you work? And half of the notes and stuff we have are sort of like warm-up questions like that. And they run for like 50 questions where they just want the background of the person. And a lot of times, like a bunch of our notes are that type of introductory. When they first come into the witness box, they get oath, or you can take an oath or an affirmation, and then they take an oath or an affirmation. Affirmation doesn't have a deity. A oath does. So an oath would be like, I swear to God or whatever, to tell whatever it is. I God will smite you if you don't tell the truth. That's what that means. And then the second one, an affirmation, just means that you promised or you make a bond to the court that you are to tell the truth in front of the judge and the jury and the community members that are all here. You promise to tell everyone here the truth that you know as the truth. So that's sort of the difference between the two. And then you get into these introductory questions, and they run for, some of them can run for like an hour, half an hour, 45 minutes sometimes. Just depends who it is and how much background they want on them. I'll give you an example. So, yeah, let me go back to one of the ones that were introduced, and I'll try find you one. Where is it? Yeah, so like today we had Nanette Rogers SC doing Stephen Eppingstall. So that's the informant. And like, you hear stuff like this. So Nanette Rogers, SC, Dr. Rogers says, "Can you state your full name for the court?" He says his full name. They say, "Are you a detective?" He says, "Yes, ma'am." They say, "Are you attached to what squad are you attached to?" He's like, "The homicide squad." And they, "Are you the informant in this matter?" He's like, "Yes." All these type of questions. It goes on for quite a while. They say, "Are you responsible for directing the investigation?" He says, "Yes, ma'am." And they say, "I want to ask you about the commencement of your involvement in this matter. On the 1st of August 2023, you were rostered to work your role at the homicide squad." And he says, "Yes, I was." And they say, "On that day, did the homicide squad receive notification of a report of a mass food poisoning event that occurred in Leongatha?" And he says, "Yes, ma'am." And they say here, that was following a lunch. That notification indicated that was following a lunch on the 29th of July. Is that right? He says, "Yes." And they say, "Very good. Now, who made the notification?" And he says, "Yeah, so we were notified by Detective Senior Constable Darren Lomax from Bass Coast CIU, based down in Wonthaggi." And they say, "Were you assigned oversight of the matter at the stage?" He says, "No, not initially. We have a criteria. It hadn't quite kicked over the criteria for homicide to get involved, so we were just keeping an eye on it, eye on the investigation as it progressed." And they say, "Is that because essentially at that stage no one had died yet?" And he says, "Right." He says, "Correct. That's not our strict criteria, but ultimately it is the deciding matter if we take carriage of the matter." So he basically said at the original time when they became aware of the investigation, no one had died yet. So there was no reason for homicide to get involved. That's just what he's saying right there. So yeah, sort of some of the early questioning that you get, some of these witnesses. So these Peanut Chocolate asks, "Can't a remote factory reset only be done with by another device with the same Apple ID?" These were Samsung devices. Samsung, you can use the we heard in evidence, a earlier evidence, that there is a Samsung software called Samsung Things, and you can connect to your phone and do a remote factory wipe from either another phone or another computer. And this came up in the forensic tech evidence a while ago. So they were talking about this Samsung Things. So that's how they believe, or at least according to the evidence, they think it might have been done that way. So yeah, there's a program called Samsung Things. I'll show it to you. Samsung Things remote wipe. Yeah, so they said you can sign in to the Samsung website on your account, select the device remotely, and choose erase data. So there you go. It says you access the Smart Things Find, open the Smart Things Find website or log in through the app, select the device, choose the device that you wish to erase from the list of registered devices, initiate erase, click on erase data or similar option, and then you have to just verify your account, review the terms and conditions, and confirm that you want to erase the device, enter your password for your Samsung account, and then if the phone is online, it'll wipe your phone for you remotely. So there you go. That's how that works. I don't know where Joe is today. He might be sleeping. uh, Tamara says, "I'm sure they would have a kind of similar feature." Yeah, so that's the app. There you go. If you want to know how it works on a Samsung. So that's the particular. Well, we heard about it in the evidence. They did mention this particular app a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, Pretty cool, huh? Let me just check if I have anything else I want to talk to you about. Eh, yeah, I think that's about it. We talked about the search warrant. Ah, this is might be interesting. So we heard from Sally Ann Atkinson, right? So gave her evidence yesterday, but today we had the cross examination of her very early this morning. So Colin Mandy SC did her cross exam of Sally Ann this morning, and this popped up in that cross exam. According to her evidence that she gave, when they probed this event, this mushroom poisoning, they actually had gone to places like the Leongatha Woolworths, and they'd done like a really big investigation into it, to the point where they were confident that no mushrooms like of a death cap variety or something that can poison someone could have come from come from the commercial supply chain. They were convinced of it because they said, one, death caps can't grow in a commercial medium for mushrooms. It's not possible. Because they only grow with oak trees. So you can't grow in a commercial medium like they do with other mushrooms, like button mushrooms. And they just were really convinced of the fact that it's not possible. So yeah, it says here the health department, Sally Ann Atkinson, told the court she had no further contact with Patterson after the 4th of August, because that's sort of when their investigation ended. And they say the jury heard a formal report was prepared, and they said it was normal to make a report like this when something as serious as this had happened, and they investigated, according to Sally Ann. And they said they deemed the outbreak was an isolated incident and that it was highly unlikely the commercial mushroom supply chain was contaminated with Amanita poison. And Miss Sally Ann said they found no issues with other foods served in the lunch, and the risk to the public was deemed low. So there you go. There was nothing in the supply chain, and they just thought it was a once off. No one else had got sick, so they just closed their investigation. This is from the health department, not VicPol or Victoria Police. This is just the health department. So health department, as it was explained to us in the evidence, they're a public health department. So they're more worried about if someone else will get ill. Not like they're concerned about the people who are ill now, right? Of course they are. But they're more like, who's next? Who might get ill after these people? And when they determined that they couldn't find anyone else and they didn't believe there was a link to anyone else, they just closed the investigation down, made a final report, and just ended it because they couldn't find a public health risk that needed their involvement. So that's why they shut down their uh investigation into it, really. Hey, thanks, Dragon. It's 22nd. Yeah, so it was in different evidence. Yes, right. I know that. I was talking about the one from today, though. Just yes, I do know that there was other evidence given about remote factory resets. I agree, but I was just trying to find the one from today. So there was. It's been throughout the trial. Different people have given evidence from their viewpoint. So we often hear similar evidence, but it's by someone else. So the best way I can describe that to you, maybe like the phone reset. So we heard from the forensic techs, we heard from the IT guys, like there was a bunch of different people who knew about it. The other way I can describe it to you is like this. Earlier on in the trial, we heard from a lot of people that worked at the same hospital or worked in the same hospital system, right? So they worked at Leongatha or Currumborough, or and they knew each other and they talked, and then they talked to the people at Dandenong, and then those people at Dandenong talked to the people at the Austin, and they all had the same information just from a different viewpoint. So a lot of the evidence has sort of that has happened a few times where um, we get sort of the same information but presented in a slightly different way or with slightly different viewpoint. That's happened a few times with different things. So yeah, I appreciate the info though, but I was just sort of looking for the one for today, just the one that was given in evidence. Um, the way we're sort of told to talk about this is that we talk about what happened today. So the rule of practice that they like us to use is like you don't go backwards. You can at the end of the trial. So when the trial finishes, I can just tell you whatever. But they sort of just want us to report what happened today. If that, I hope that makes sense to you all. So yeah, they're like you can report on the trial, but just what you saw on Tuesday, not like 3.5 weeks ago. So yeah, it's one of the sort of media guidelines that they like to have. Yeah, so I'm at the trial every day. So I'm not reading from a news report or something. I've been at the Erin Patterson trial since day one. I've been out in Morwell, Supreme Court every day covering it. So, but I appreciate the information. I do. I do. Yeah, that's very kind of you. I appreciate it. That would be very kind. Julie Miller says, imagine the cost of the healthcare system for this event. You hear like the long transports and things like that. Those are not cheap when they have to transfer patients like 2 hours away. And then you think of how many they had in this particular case, like 4 different people coming from 2 different hospitals, Currumborough and Leongatha. And then they all headed out to Dandenong and then were transferred from Dandenong to the Austin. And when they were transferred from the Dandenong to the Austin, they were intubated and sedated. So it was an even more complex transport of patients. Um, yeah, I mean, the cost would have been astronomical. The cost would have been astronomical. I can't imagine what it would cost to transport 4 people who are not awake over an hour away. So each one of these was about, I think, Leongatha, Currumborough to Dandenong was about an hour and 20 minutes. Dandenong to the Austin was about an hour. So it's huge transport times. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. But it probably happens multiple times a day. There's probably probably not all 4 people that were at the same lunch, but there's probably multiple patients from all different hospitals that are transferred every day between different facilities in Melbourne. So it probably happens more than we know. Yeah, probably happens every day. But I appreciate the comment though. I didn't get your name. Dragon Phoenix. I appreciate it. 22nd of May. Yeah, so that would have been. So that was Thursday. So Thursday last week, we heard from Shaman Fox Henry. So Shaman Fox Henry was the digital forensic at VicPol. And he only actually finished up his evidence, I think, on Monday or earlier today or something. His evidence was quite extensive and ran over like fractured parts over 4 days, 3 days, 8 days, something like that. He had a bunch of like he did an hour here and then he left and then he came back and did another hour and then they left and he came back another day. It's a bit disjointed with Shaman Fox Henry. I think that's it, guys. I think God, is it 10 o'clock? I have to get up and do this all over again tomorrow. Have to get up and go back. I'm going to be very happy when we get into Verdict Watch. I'm going to be very happy to come home. I'm I'm missing my old life right now. I'm missing my old life of just being a live streamer and just being at home. It's huge amounts of hours out. Like I tell you, I only got home at about 6:40, and then I wrote through all my notes and then came on. I've been with you guys ever since, and I got up at like 5:30 this morning to get to court. So it's a really long day. It's a really long day, and we've still got a few left to go. How many? I don't know. But if we're gonna do 6 weeks, it could be the end of this week and next week, and then a jury and stuff like that. So, oh, my back's a little sore actually. The chairs we have at court are a bit crap. They're a bit sore. My back's been it's a bit stiff. Chipmunk says, "Good job, Ping. Thank you for yeah, I appreciate it." Oh, not again. It literally hailed on me today. Coming home, I was waiting at a train station to catch the V line, and it freaking hailed on me. Hail, just like pelting me in the face. Got all this like hail coming down at the in the afternoon. I don't know. I don't know. That's I would say right now the way I'd explain it is this for people who don't understand how courts work. The prosecution always makes their case first. Then we hear from the defense. They call whoever they want to call. Maybe they don't want to call anyone. Maybe they don't want to do anything. Maybe they just want to close their case too. And then it goes to what they call the judges or the judges, the justices charge. So the charge to the jury is basically like an explanation and a set of instructions to the jury. Once that takes place, the jury then goes into verdict, and it's deliberations. They're sequestered. So this jury will probably go to a hotel somewhere. Monday to Saturday, they will deliberate. I think that's how it works in Victoria anyway. I think in Victoria I don't know about this trial, but I have seen in other trials where they have deliberated on a Saturday. I just don't think they do 7 days a week. I think it's 6 days a week if they don't come up with a verdict during the week. So they sometimes do sit on the weekend too. So it is possible to get a verdict on a weekend. So yeah, so that's sort of how it works down here. Still got a little bit to go. How long? I'm not 100% sure, but we're getting there. We're getting there. And I told you, when you see this pop up, when you see this, this will be ping signal to you that it's game on. When you see this live stream sitting in my channel waiting, this means that you'll know before anyone else this is game on. I will have this up like that. As soon as I know, this will be up, and you guys will know before the news, before the media. I'll have this up within seconds of knowing that we're into verdict. So unleash the hounds. Yeah, we are game on, and we're in verdict watch. So hopefully not too much longer. They don't give us a date or anything. I just think that maybe this end of this week, maybe next week. So we're getting there. Hey Lionheart, how are you? Is the healthcare system free in Oz as it is for us in the UK? Very similar to the NHS, but slightly different. Very similar though. It's Commonwealth funded. But we do have private healthcare too, so you can get private healthcare in Australia as well. Thank you, my friend. Good to see you, Woman of Steel. Dragon Phoenix says the content has been really interesting. Thank you for your tireless efforts. Thank you. Thank you for finding that data from Shaman Fox Henry. I appreciate it. I'm glad everyone has found the trial interesting, and it's sort of brought a spotlight onto the channel because we've been here for a couple of years. I've been doing live shows for about 2 years on this channel, but I actually came from a bigger channel called WebSleuth. So if you don't know who that is, they run the websleuth.com discussion forum. I was with them for quite a long time, and I did live shows on there every Sunday night. And then I eventually migrated to here to my own channel so we could do trials and more time intensive type things. So yeah, thank you to everyone. Thank you to all the new people in the chat. It's really nice to see all the new names. Dragon, who else do we have? We had Tamara. I don't know where Tamara went. Julie's been around. Lionheart. J Gaz, hey, good to see you again. Are you allowed to bring a seat cushion? I don't know. We have to go through security, and I already bring enough crap that the security people just find every morning I walk up and they're just like, oh, not again. Not this guy. I have to like take off my headphones, take off my sunglasses, get my mobile phone, my keys, my laptop, like anything metal. And then I have to dump it all on the security thing where it goes through the scanner. And then it takes me 10 minutes to put it all back on and put my bag back together. And I don't know if they'd like it if I brought more items into the courthouse. I think they'd get a little upset at me. They'd be a bit upset. Hey, Robbie, good to see you, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Who else? Do we have anyone else new here? I'm just having a look. A cat's sort of new, right, my friend? Who else do we have? I just want to say hello to some of the new people because it's nice to see them. It's nice. Hey, Mike was here earlier with some funny comments. Carrie was new. Hey, Carrie. Who else do we have? I don't know. But if you're new to the channel, I appreciate it. Thanks for the subscribe. And if you like this type of content, we are going to more trials. So we are heading out to the Samantha Murphy trial, and that'll be in a few months' time. So we're going to go out to that one at the Supreme Court in Victoria, and then later this year we have a different one, which is a case called Isla Bell. And Isla Bell was murdered in Melbourne, and her body was put into a fridge and dumped in various places around Melbourne until someone put her body into a garbage bin when they thought it was a dead animal. And her body ended up at the garbage tip, or the garbage, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the American word is, but where the garbage goes when it gets picked up. And they had to locate her remains from the garbage dump. There you go, the dump. There you go. So that's what that defined her there. And the story behind how she ended up there is one of the most brutal stories I've ever read out of Melbourne in many, many years. So that'll be coming up either late 2025 or early 2026. We're not sure yet. It had a delay a few months ago, and it's affecting the timeline for it. So yeah, so we have more plans, and so stick around. And if you like these people, hit the subscribe button. That subscribe button has been helping me out. It's been raising the profile a little bit. It's been giving me some more opportunities to bring better content for you. So if you haven't hit it yet and you're not a subscriber, I would appreciate it. I don't really ask my people for anything. We do have like donation links and stuff, but you don't see me sitting here all night talking about it or whatever. I just bring you the content, and what I ask in return is that you just hit that button, because it's what really helps live streamers out. It's making that stupid number go larger. So if you haven't done that yet, I would appreciate it. And that's how you can help me out for all this hours and work trying to do this type of content. So I love you all. I will see you tomorrow. And what will tomorrow bring? I have no idea. Maybe we're going to hear more from the informant, the man in charge of the homicide investigation. We'll probably hear a cross-examination of him tomorrow. And what happens after that? Your guess is as good as mine. I will tell you. I'll be on Twitter again. You'll get an update on the Twitter. So I will see you then. Let me go get some sleep. And let's do it all over again tomorrow for day 21. Tomorrow will be day 21. Love you all. Oh, wait, hold on. Wait, whoa, we almost ended and I almost feel bad. Hold on, guys. Let me double check something. Let me just double check because I know there's a couple of nice people who sent in donations. Yeah, thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you. And to the people in here, Aussie Trisha, thank you very much. It's really kind. I really hope your hand gets better soon, my friend. And yeah, no, you're welcome for the membership. And Sean says, hit the thumbs up to help the algorithm and the subscribe button too, please. Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it, buddy. It's good to see you. I hope you're having a good week. Yes, we're at the trial every day till the end. I love you all. Have a great Tuesday night. Stay warm out there if you're in Melbourne. It is freezing. It is cold as duck nuts out there. It is really cold. I'll see you tomorrow. Same time around 8:15 p.m. And then, like I said, during the day, I'll be on Twitter if you want to tune in and see what's happening at the trial. I post updates throughout the day. Like today, I posted a lot about the different types of evidence that was coming in and sort of live tweeting the trial a little bit. So, yeah. All right. Peace out. Love you all. Have a great Tuesday. Rest your Tuesday or Tuesday if you're in America. Peace out. Bye.